In our world that we live in today, we are constantly surrounded by technology and superstructures rising beyond what we could imagine. But how was it possible for mankind so many years ago to build structures that we couldn't even grasp to build without the technology we have today? So in this video, we are going to go way back, over 4,000 years ago, where our constructive abilities were tested to its finest. Stonehenge, located on the Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England, is still regarded as one of the biggest mysteries the world has yet to discover. But what makes this prehistoric monument so mysterious? Well, before we jump into that, we have to go way back to the year 3100 BC, where it all started. The construction of Stonehenge initially consisted of 7 stages. So, I'll be talking about those chronologically and explaining what happened in each. During stage 1, the basis of the structure was planned out, and they started moving some of the material to where Stonehenge lies today. The chosen site for the monument was an open grassland with a slight slope, and during the first phase of construction, a few of the many blue stones were transported from Wales, a bordering country of England, to the site and were believed to have been used as grave markers. It is a fact many don't know about Stonehenge, but during the early days of its construction, Stonehenge was used as a burial site, and thanks to scientists, after studying the bones of the estimated 63 individuals, they were said to have come from the same area as the blue stones from Wales. The second stage of construction occurred around 2900 to 2600 BC. The many post holes located in the site date back to the early 3rd millennium BC and could mean that some sort of wooden structure was used within the forming enclosure, and further wooden beams were installed, perhaps being used to plan the next phase of the build. The third stage consisted of 5 different phases, and it was only in the first phase where the wooden beams were replaced by the blue stones. A concentric array of holes was dug around the midpoint of the site for the stones to lie in. But this raises the age-old question, where did the blue stones come from? Well, first let's define what bluestone actually is. Bluestone is a type of sandstone but has a darker blue color, due to its early formation in deep water with minimal exposure to light. You might not see the bluish color in the today standing Stonehenge, but that's because they aren't freshly broken or wet. Additionally, the smaller stones found at Stonehenge were referred to as bluestones, and the larger ones were called sarsens. So, where did the bluestones come from? Well, scientists are confident that the monoliths used to construct Stonehenge were brought all the way from Preseli Hills in southwest Wales. Now we know where they come from, but how did they transport them all that way? The weight of the stones could be anywhere from 2 to 25 tons, depending if it were bluestone or sarsen. But still, a method to move these humongous stones had to be done without the technology we have today. Scientists have still come to the conclusion that these monoliths were transported using the rows of wooden poles, similar to what the Egyptians used when making the pyramids. Other features were also added during this time, including 4 station stones located outside the inner ring of stones. A parallel pair of ditches and banks was also added, which led to the river Avon 3 kilometers away. In this phase, 30 enormous sarsen stones were transported north from Westwood, Wiltshire, 26 kilometers away. Before the stones were set up into a circle with a diameter of 33 meters, they were fashioned with mortise and tenon joints to help connect the 30 additional lintel stones which lay on top. Each of the sarsens weighed a staggering 25 tons and stood over 4 meters tall. The final number of stones needed for the project added up to 75 stones. A pair of trilithons were also set up as part of the horseshoe and measured 7,5 meters in height. There were also images of daggers and 14 axe heads engraved into the sarsens, which shows similarities to the late Bronze Age weapons. During this time, some of the bluestones were repositioned and placed in the outer circle, and some of them might have been trimmed slightly. As for the sarcens, they might have been part of a larger structure, with evidence from the woodworking style cuts found on them. The bluestones were moved around once more, and the altar stone was transported into the inner circle at this time, where it was later positioned vertically at its final resting point. The construction during this phase wasn't executed well, which resulted in some of the bluestones collapsing, where only minor changes were made afterwards. In the final phase of the build, a section from the circle was removed to create a horseshoe shape, mirroring the central sarsen trilithon. This ultimately completed Stonehenge. After nearly 1,500 years of construction, we are left with the beautiful architecture and design of our past. Stonehenge is still one of the world's oldest standing structures known to mankind, having been built in the same era as the Egyptian pyramids and the megalithic temples of Malta. Stonehenge is a protected site you can see for yourself today, and still remains in the open grassland of Salisbury Plain.